There's a Way. Chapter 1. The Weight of the Ordinary. The world turns because it must, because it always has, because nothing intervenes. Bound to its orbit by the blind mechanics of the universe, it drifts. A planet tethered to a star, lost in a galaxy, itself a fragment of some greater, indifferent expanse. No purpose guides the passage of hours into days, days into years, years into something vague and vanishing. The cycle continues unbroken, oblivious to the lives clinging to its surface. Lives that mistake motion for direction, routine for reason, telling themselves they are advancing when they are only being carried along. Work is done, though its purpose is uncertain. The machinery of habit turns, not because it serves, but because it persists, all moving forward with the tireless determination of something that believes itself important. Tasks repeat, numbers are recorded, time worn thin and retreating into memory, yet the cycle grinds on. It always has. It always will. Still, systems are built to disguise the void. Forms are filled, records kept, figures adjusted as if movement alone justifies their existence. Documents pass from desk to desk, accumulating creases and signatures, their weight increasing, while their meaning remains unchanged. The day is divided into neat increments, yet its passing is no better understood. The pattern remains unquestioned. No one asks what happens when the last task is completed, the last page filled, the last hour struck. Everything is in motion, yet nothing changes. Well, not yet, anyway. Rupert, barely 2 years old, was already sick of it all. He loved his family, was grateful to be warm and never hungered for food, but being abandoned on the streets by birth parents, whose instinct should have been to protect him at all costs, left a stain no comfort could erase. He remembered the cold, the way it wrapped around him, settled into his bones like it had no intention of ever leaving. Hunger had gnawed at him for what seemed like days. A dull ache at first, then something sharper, more urgent. He had cried until his throat was raw, curled up beneath the rusting frame of an old car, flinching at every distant footstep, every slam of a door, every low rumble of an approaching engine that sent tremors through the ground beneath him. The world was too big, too loud, too detached, and he was too small, and too forgotten. Then, hands. He had recoiled at first, but there was nowhere to go. The grip was firm, but not cruel. A voice, quiet but certain, broke through the static of his fear, whispering something he didn't have the strength to resist. He was lifted into warmth, pressed against steady movement. The journey inside was a blur of shifting lights, unfamiliar scents, the distant muttering sounds that didn't belong to him. And then he was placed down, not outside, but somewhere bright, somewhere open, somewhere that smelled like things he couldn't yet name. He didn't move, didn't blink. His breath came too fast, too shallow. The walls were too tall, the space too unfamiliar. His limbs were locked, his mind braced for the next cruelty, but nothing came. No harsh words, no rough hands, just time. Time to sit in the silence, to watch, to let the warmth settle around him like something waiting to be trusted. He was given food but never forced, given space but never left behind, no sudden movements, no demands. He'd been ready to fight for scraps, ready to run if he had to. But hunger was stronger than fear. It always was. He ate, then ate again, and with every bite, the terror loosened its grip. It took longer for the walls inside him to lower, longer still before he let himself lean into the gentle touches that no longer startled him. It happened slowly in the quiet moments between the fear, when he realized he wasn't bracing for the world to turn cruel again, when the voices that had unsettled him became a comfort, when the arms that had carried him inside became familiar. But that stain, that wound of knowing what the world truly was, never faded. He saw things for what they were now, how easily people abandoned what they no longer wanted, how cruelty came not always in violence but in neglect, in thoughtlessness, in the casual way life was discarded, like it meant nothing at all. He had been given warmth, security, love, a home. But beyond these walls, the world still turned in the same empty, selfish way it always had. He had seen too much to believe in it now. He was safe, yes. But that didn't mean he could forget. And he never would. Chapter 2: The Beginning. There are moments when an uncomfortable feeling flickers at the edge of awareness, so faint it barely registers, yet too present to ignore. Like waking hungover in a room he doesn't recognize, or realizing his t-shirt has been backwards all day. It isn't fear, barely even unease, just the sense that something has shifted while he wasn't looking. And when morning comes, it doesn't feel like a fresh start, but a day that has already made up its mind. The room is still dark, pale light slicing through the curtains in thin stripes. Will wakes before the alarm, as usual half asleep but not quite resting. 15 minutes, not enough for a snooze, too much to lie still. If he drifts off, he might wake too late. He pushes himself up, the warmth of the bed already slipping away. His boxer shorts a poor substitute for a blanket. The first task of the day is always the same: feed the street cats and gather firewood. He dismantles the barricade at the front door, an inelegant heap of old blankets and boxes, a makeshift solution to the gaps left by the poorly fitted entrance. What began as a temporary fix has long since become part of the house. Stepping into the icy air in just underwear and slippers, the chill hits as it always does. He never learns. The outside cats sit motionless in the dim light, unbothered by the cold, watching as he fills their bowls. His breath forms clouds that break apart as he moves toward the woodpile, eager to return inside. After a few failed attempts, the fire cracks to life, casting flickering shadows across the walls. The indoor cats wander to their bowls, their eyes fixed on the food as he sets it down. He sits at his desk booting up the computer, the mechanical drone filling the morning silence. Drawn by the fire's warmth, Lane stirs from the bedroom. He listens to the quiet shuffle of her steps, the soft clink of spoons on cups as she moves through the kitchen. These sounds are familiar, Lane's slumberful movements punctuated by the rhythmic gurgle of the coffee maker. No small talk is needed. Her silence in the mornings is an unspoken clause in their relationship, written in years of familiarity. Her verbally contracted peace before the world fully claims her. The noises cease. A mug is placed in front of him, and he watches as Lane retreats to her usual corner, picking up one of her mother's old journals. She turns each page with quiet reverence, the movement more ritual than habit. The atmosphere in the cave, once soothing, now feels taut, charged with a strange static energy, as if something unseen has taken its place in the room. The fragile calm of the morning lingers, waiting poised on the verge of unravelling. Then something gives. It begins as a subtle vibration, faint enough to be mistaken for a passing tractor. The coffee in his mug shudders, ripples spreading across its surface like something out of Jurassic Park. The sensation deepens, a low thrum that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere, distant yet palpable. Will glances at Lane. Nothing. She remains absorbed in her work, her expression unreadable. But the cats, ever observant, react instantly. Their heads snap toward him, eyes widening, ears flattening. A moment later, he understands why. His feet are no longer on the floor. The ground drops away as if the laws of physics have forgotten him. He rises, lifted by something unseen, weightless. A sickening sway settles in his head. Panic knots in his chest. His hands shoot out, grasping for anything, but the chair offers no anchor. Only empty space. The firelight, once steady, jerks wildly. Shadows stretch and twist across the walls, shifting in time with whatever force is pulling him upward. He wants to shout, to make sense of the madness, but no sound comes, only the deafening absence of gravity. No force dragging him down, no sense of solid ground beneath him. The air thickens, pressing around him, cushioning his body with an unfamiliar touch. Suddenly, with a violent jolt, gravity returns, wrenching him back into the chair. The world slams into place, the vibration ceases. The room settles into stillness, save for the crackling fire and the erratic beat of his pulse. The cats remain watchful, wary. Lane doesn't look up, her focus unbroken, each stroke of her pen underlining the absurdity of what he has just experienced. The hours pass slowly, the event looping in his mind. Will goes through the motions, his body on autopilot, trying to make sense of it. The memory shifts toward something rational, a waking hallucination perhaps, but he doesn't feel stressed. Lane has shut herself in her study, absorbed in her research, leaving him alone with it. And then it starts again, a brief disturbance at the edge of his vision. He blinks, but it's gone. Another follows, slipping in and out of sight, impossible to track. They move with intent, but he can't pin them down. Every time he tries to focus, they vanish, leaving only the sense of something just out of reach. They come closer now, unmistakable in their approach, as if wanting to be seen. A pressure builds in his chest. This is happening. Undeniable and absolute. The cats remain still, uninterested while he watches, caught in the moment. A faint sound breaks the silence, something like a paw tapping stone. One of the lights strikes the stack of envelopes, sending them tumbling in slow motion. The descent seems unnatural, as if gravity itself is uncertain. He holds still, watching the last of the movement settle. The glow is gone, but the evidence remains. He reaches out, hands unsteady, grasping the envelope now protruding from the pile. The paper's edge is scorched, a blackened mark seared into its surface, the imprint of something passing through. The acrid scent of ash clings to the air. The envelope shouldn't look this way, but it does. Proof of something unseen, something that has left its mark. The paper is real, the burn is real, the lights, whatever they are real. This isn't a dream or a trick of the eye. His fingers turned the envelope over, warmth still radiating from its charred surface. Something moved through this room. He saw it. Then the change, a jolt at the base of his spine, spreading outward like cold fire. His skin prickles as the lights close in. They are no longer stray glimmers. They are here, searching, and when they find what they want, they sink into him. Their presence is undeniable, not just movement, not just energy, but something more. They pass through his spine, deeper, threading into his core. A strange electric force moves through him, foreign yet controlled, charged with intent. His senses sharpen, as if being rewritten from within. It isn't an intrusion, not exactly, more like a claim. Heat and ice etch across his body, marking something unseen. They are not attacking, they are binding. He feels stronger, steady, as if he has been waiting for this. They take hold, embedding themselves in ways he doesn't understand. A hum threads through his muscles, his nerves, something deeper than thought, something shifting beyond his control. He tries to shake the sensation, but the ache in his back deepens. Not pain, not fear, something else. Something waking up. After shutting down the computer, he steps into a hot shower, hoping to ease the tension. Steam curls around him as the water cascades over his skin, offering a momentary sense of relief. But it doesn't last. As he turns, letting the heat soak into his back, the ache flares again, sharp, insistent. His fingers brush over tender skin, tracing something he hadn't noticed before. Now he can feel them, the points where the lights entered, raw. Stepping out, he wipes a patch of steam from the mirror and turns his back to the reflection. 10 dark circles mark his skin, perfectly round, unnervingly precise, raised edges, deliberate symmetry, not wounds, imprints, a trace of something that has passed through. The marks carry a quiet energy, more like a tattoo than a scar, a message. He stands there, breath unsteady. The sensations, the flickering of something unreal, have led to this. These aren't just marks. They are signs of what he doesn't know. Unease settles over him, but beneath it, something else, something quieter, anticipation. Wrapping a towel around himself, he turns away. The marks remain, silent heralds of whatever is still to come. The night was unusually calm, a rare stillness that gave him something he hadn't felt in days. Real rest. All week sleep had been haunted by the same monotonous dream, parking a car, wandering in search of it, waking hollow. But last night, the dream didn't come. In its absence, an eerie tranquility remained. He woke with a clear head and the fleeting sense that the quiet had been deliberate. Morning light edged across the tiled floor, sharpening the contrast of the room. The cats had stationed themselves at various points, their focus pinned to the walls. Their stillness unsettled him. Hours passed and they did not waver. Work provided little distraction. He followed a colleague's advice to rest his eyes, looking out at the mountains to reset his focus. The peaks stood as always immovable, unremarkable, but the room he returned to felt subtly wrong. Objects seemed slightly out of place, as if some unseen hand had made imperceptible adjustments. It was the remote on his desk that unsettled him most. He could have sworn it had shifted an inch, no more, but the change was undeniable. His hands itched to move it back, yet he hesitated. The walls pressed in just slightly, as if the room itself had rearranged its breath. Later, a faint vibration rippled through the floor. like standing on a train platform before the train appears, steady, insistent, carrying through the ground in waves. It lasted nearly an hour. When he asked Lane if she felt it, she glanced up from the sofa, feet tucked beneath her, and said she hadn't. That only made it worse. By the time it faded, the unease hadn't. Restlessness settled in its place, something he couldn't shake. He stepped outside, drawn by the crisp air, by the need to do something. Chopping wood seemed like a way to clear his head. The axe fit so well in his hands, it felt like an extension of them. Each swing came effortlessly, the wood splitting cleanly beneath the blade. He paused, the rhythm broken by an odd realization. He wasn't wearing shoes. No boots, no socks. The damp earth pressed against bare skin, and for a moment it felt right, as if he belonged to it. The sensation settled in him, grounding, steadying, something rare and welcome. When he stepped back inside with the freshly chopped wood, Lane was gone. That was when the lights returned. Unlike before, they didn't vanish as soon as he saw them. They moved as if the room belonged to them, weaving through the air, slipping into corners, inspecting the shadows. He counted 10 in all, their glow steady, deliberate. One drifted close, pausing just before his face. The faint warmth it gave off brushed against his skin, a sensation that felt disconcertingly alive. Without thinking, he raised his arms. The lights surged toward him in response, spiraling around his body in a slow, controlled rhythm. Their brightness intensified, the heat seeping into him like sunlight on bare stone. A vibration started deep within, spreading outward until every part of him seemed to hold it. He closed his eyes, but the light remained, vivid even in darkness. One by one, they sank into him, each bringing a surge of heat and energy. As the last 2 reached him, they entered through his eyes. The world flared into a searing white, and then everything fell away. When he became aware again, he was pressed against something cold. For a disorienting moment, he thought he was lying on the floor, but the angle was wrong. His head spun as the realization settled. He wasn't on the ground at all. His body was pressed against the ceiling, his nose nearly touching the surface. The room stretched below him, warped and distant, as though he were looking down from an impossible height. There was no time to understand it before he was pulled downward with sudden, brutal force. He hit the sofa hard, the impact driving the breath from his chest. For a moment he could only lie there, stunned, as his mind struggled to make sense of what had just happened. Exhaustion closed in around him, heavy and insistent. He couldn't resist it. As he slipped toward unconsciousness, a faint movement caught at the edge of his vision. The cats. In the quiet space between sleep and waking, something shifted. He was not alone. The cats moved like shadows, slipping in and out of his blurred perception, drawn to something subtle within him. One by one, they took their places at the entrance, their eyes fixed, unblinking, intent. They were not simply watching him, they were standing guard, silent, poised, their presence protective, but of what he could not yet tell. There are moments, fleeting and indistinct, when he thinks he hears something. Whispers, perhaps, or the remnants of a dream. At first it feels like the half-conscious muddle of a mind reluctant to leave sleep behind. The sounds slip away as soon as they form, too faint to grasp. "Shh," one of them seems to say, the voice quiet. almost coaxing. "You'll wake him. He mustn't wake yet." He stirs, blinking through the dark, and the room slowly sharpens, silent, undisturbed, save for the crackling fire. Just another night, normal except for the feeling that it isn't. Morning arrives in its usual hush, light slipping through the curtains in muted streaks. Lane steps inside, pausing at the sight of Will still slouched on the couch. Her expression is unreadable, hovering between concern and something else. "Why didn't you sleep in the bed last night?" she asks. Her voice is soft, but there's weight to the question, like it matters more than it should. Will mumbles something about falling asleep with music on. The truth stays locked away, buried under a sensation he still can't shake. It lingers beneath his skin, a quiet charge like a presence that hasn't quite left. Oddly, work isn't unbearable today. There's an ease to it, something almost disorienting in how smooth everything feels. Emails, messages, even the usual grind of calls. There's no friction. The distance between Will and the people he speaks with feels thinner, as if something real passes between them. Not the usual scripted exchanges, but something that lingers, however briefly. Pocket jumps onto the counter, nudging a glass off the edge. Before Will can think, his hand is there, catching it mid-fall with a precision that startles him. He hadn't even been aware of moving. The glass settles unscathed in his grip, and Pocket just stares. Lulu wanders off to the lounge, uninterested. For a moment Will could swear Pocket glances toward him before knocking the glass, a silent cue between them. Ridiculous. Cats don't scheme, do they? The cave is quieter today. The television sits dark, untouched. For the first time in as long as he can remember, Will doesn't feel the need to fill the silence with noise. Instead, he finds himself working on something different, installing shelves in the lounge, high up on the wall, lined with soft bedding for the cats. He read once that they need somewhere high to retreat to. If you don't give them one, they'll find their own. Pocket claims the top shelf immediately, stretching out as if he owns it, while Lulu sprawls lazily on the lower one. They seem content, settled. Watching them, a quiet sense of accomplishment settles over Will, though it isn't the kind that comes from crossing tasks off a list or getting paid. It isn't something measurable at all, yet it stays, steady and quiet. There's satisfaction in seeing them comfortable, filling the space in a way that makes it feel more like home. Perhaps this is what life could be. No background noise, no screen offering distractions from thoughts that won't settle. Just quiet moments, small tasks, and the low, contented purr of a cat above him. It isn't the life Will imagined, yet as he glances at the shelves he built, he wonders if maybe that doesn't matter. Will takes a few days off work, not because of the workload, but because he needs distance from it. Something physical to keep his hands busy, his thoughts anchored. Laying the foundation for the shed seems fitting, straightforward, repetitive, far from the noise still stirring in his head. There is something satisfying about the work, the repetition and the weight of the shovel in his hands, the scrape of metal against soil. It asks nothing of him beyond presence and movement. The muscles in his back burn, but it is a good burn, one that comes with a sense of progress. The rhythm settles into something meditative. the act of turning earth over and over, like resetting something within himself. He starts before dawn, the cold sharp against his skin. The chill helps him focus. As the day wears on and the earth warms, the ache in his muscles pushes him onward, as though something deep inside urges him not to stop. He doesn't, not until exhaustion forces him to pause. That's when Will sees it. At first, he thinks it's the sun catching a rock, but as he leans closer, he realizes this is different. A faint gleam sits in the dirt, something smooth and deliberate. He reaches for the trowel, his hands unsteady as he clears the soil away. Not a stone, not an old, long-buried tool. Crystal. Light refracts across its surface, sharp and unnatural, as if it doesn't quite belong to the earth it was buried in. Will's pulse quickens. The weight of it in his palm feels wrong, not heavy but significant, like holding something meant to stay hidden. He takes it inside, rinsing away the dirt. As the water runs over it, a vibration pulses through his hands. It isn't his fingers shaking, it's the object itself, a faint hum travelling up his arms. He freezes, staring, then continues washing away the grime. As the surface clears, markings appear. Angular, deliberate, not a language he recognizes, not something meant for him to understand. A weight settles in his chest. Will snaps a few pictures, his hands moving on instinct before wrapping it carefully. He doesn't know what he has found, only that he shouldn't have. Before sliding the object into a box and tucking it into the wardrobe out of Lane's sight, Will hesitates. He isn't ready to explain it. First, he needs to understand it himself.